Grace and peace, everybody. Grace and peace. We're back. You saw the thumbnail. You saw the title. You know what we're about to do. We're going to talk about these presidential interviews that happened after the debate. But before we get too far afield, I don't want to go too far. I want to say welcome to everybody that's in the chat. Thank you so very much for stopping by on this evening. Thank you so much for supporting the channel, hitting that like button, all that kind of good stuff. If you want to be a part of the best live chat on the planet, just go on and hit the like button and then jump on in and tell everybody hello. So thank y'all so much, because I'm sure you all realize that this was the 4th of July week this past Thursday, right? And it wasn't just skyrockets and bottle rockets and M80s that were blowing up. We had the YSL case basically get scuttled. Judge Glanville got his hand slapped, and it was terrible. We had the city girl judge out here in Georgia doing her circuit, her Chitlin circuit, going round and around to different radio stations pleading her case. We had that foolishness. We had the delay of the Trump sentencing in New York. We had that. And on the heels of all of that, we had that crazy debate last week. So we have a lot to talk about. What I'm going to talk about today, though, is I want to discuss the post-debate interviews that both President Biden and former President Trump did. Before we get too far afield, I do want to shout out all the new subscribers that have come check out this channel. They said, hey, this guy, I like what he's talking about, or I want to see what kind of goofy hat he has on, or whatever like that. I want to know why that on air sign is not on, that kind of stuff, whatever. So I want to shout y'all out, but I didn't want to tell you who I am. So my name is Jason. I am a former classroom teacher here in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm retired, and now I just do content. I own a content creation studio in Marietta, Georgia. And this is my home studio, though, because it's just easier sometimes just to shoot from the house. But what I like to do is I like to do social and political commentary from a Christian male perspective. I like to give you an understanding of, like, why do Christians see situations maybe differently? Why do we see them in a way that's counter to the culture? So tonight, we're going to look at something I think we probably need to look at and maybe be a little bit more serious and honest about. And I'll tell you it in a moment. I want to do a quick little activity. I want you to pretend with me, if you will, that you are the general manager of a baseball team. Okay. Pick a team. I don't care. Okay. But you're the general manager, and this team has been very, very, very successful. Dare I say, dominatingly successful. And you, as the general manager, have built this team around a very successful, dare I say, phenomenal pitcher. This pitcher is outstanding. And you have built a great team around this great team camaraderie, this great coaching, field management. I mean, it's all cylinders are firing. And you say, hey, it's all because you got a great pitcher, and this pitcher is a beast. But one day you're in the office and you're just kind of doing your thing as general manager, glad to know that your team is crushing it, glad to know that your team is all healthy and they're looking at being another successful season. You hear rumors that your number one pitcher has started taking up emergency tree cutting. And you kind of wonder, like, emergency tree cutting, what got him into that? But you're like, this is kind of weird, but maybe I heard it wrong, and I'll look into it a little bit later. But you don't get crazy about it or anything like that. So you just say, hey, maybe it was just a fluke. Maybe I misheard something, but I got some other GM, general manager things to do. And you just kind of put it off to the side. So soon one day, however, you happen to be at the field during training, and you see your number one pitcher, the phenom, the beast. He has a bum knee, kind of got his knee wrapped up. And you're kind of wondering, like, well, what happened? What happened to your knee? And you come to find out that he was doing an emergency tree cutting and stepped wrong out of a tree and kind of fell or stumbled and hurt his knee. But he's okay. Everything is okay, though. And he can still pitch. And you're kind of like, what possessed you to start doing this? Pitcher person? But you still, again, you don't investigate much into it. You trust your coaching staff and so on and so forth. However, now we go another week. The following week, you lose to a team that you should have blew out. Okay, you lose to a team that you should have blew out, and come to find out that he gave your phenom pitcher gave up a lot of hits that should not have been hits. And you're dealing with your coaching staff. You're finding out that, well, your phenom pitcher wasn't able to get to the field early enough to practice and warm up like you always do. Most of your players get there 2 hours before game time to get warmed up and get loose. Well, your phenom pitcher, he had seen this little old lady who had a tree fall in her yard, and he had his tree cutting stuff in his trunk. So he gets out and he's helping the old lady, and he's able to help her get the tree done. And he gets to the stadium late, and he wasn't able to warm up properly, and it was a really bad day. It was a bad pitching day. And you're really wondering, like, what is going on? Because your team should have won that game. And now it starts to become a trend. So your winning team now is just really happy to be 1 over 500. So if you're playing baseball, if you're familiar with baseball, 1 over 500 means that you win basically 51% of your games, okay? But that's not really good going into the end of the season, because you should be dominating in your regard. And then come find out that some of your other players are starting to pick up these hobbies and side projects, skydiving and rock climbing and all these other side projects that are slowly but surely taking away from what they should be doing and what you're paying them for lots of money to do, which is play baseball, hit that ball with that bat and pitch that ball to other people and don't let them hit it. I mean, that's what you're paying them to do. And slowly but surely, your prize team misses the playoffs. And no longer is your team dominating. Now they're in shambles. They're totally in shambles. They close out the season in 4th place. So they don't even make it to the playoffs. They get shut out. And not only that, you start speaking to the coaching staff, and they have started taking up side hobbies and projects, other things. Hey, I started knitting. I started a baking club. I'm part of a coffee clutch, but none of them are focused on what they're supposed to be doing. And now your team, which at one point was dominating, is now just run-of-the-mill Bush League. Jason, where in the world are we going with this crazy story? I agree. That's a fantastic question. You know where? Your team, in this example, they started out doing something that they weren't supposed to be doing. The main pitcher was not supposed to be cutting trees. He was not supposed to. And the coaching staff should have called him back into focus on what he's supposed to be doing. Well, one of the problems that we have here, and we're going to watch this with the Joe Biden as well as with the Trump interviews, is that the government has become entirely too comfortable doing things that they're not supposed to be doing. And Jason, hold on now. The government is supposed to be doing all these great things, keeping us all that stuff like that. I'm going to go ahead and say that they're not. Just an article I wanted to focus on, but don't worry, have no fear. I did put it in the description for this video. And it's just a quick understanding of what the Christian understands government to do. And I'm going to push out today, as we're looking at Joe Biden as well as Donald Trump's interviews, I'm going to challenge that a lot of the things that we ask the government to do, the government should never have been doing. The government is not tasked to do, I'd say, the lion's share of the things that they do, they're not supposed to do them. But even worse than that, they spend so much time doing things that they're not supposed to do that they're no longer effective in the things that they should be doing. And I wanted to go over a quick article with you. I'm going to express to you why I, as a Christian, understand this to be the roles of government. And there's a lot here. I would love for you to check this out. Maybe we'll do another rehash. Maybe we'll come back through and go through it all in great detail. I am leaving this link down in the description because I do want you to check it out, because this is the framework and this is the jump off position that I will be going over as I look at what Biden said as well as what Trump say in their respective interviews. I do want you to point out a couple things. That first of all, government is not man's idea. We did not come up with this idea of government. We didn't come up with it. Just like we didn't come up with the idea of marriage. We didn't come up with that. We didn't come up with the idea of marriage and family. That was a God instituted idea. Now, the reason I want to point this out is because this is where I am going to be making my case that a lot of the stuff that Biden is going to be referring to as successes and what he's trying to accomplish, same thing with Trump. A lot of those things, the church, the government is not tasked to do those things. They are literally making up new things. So again, your phenom pitcher is doing new things that are detracting from his ability to actually do the task that you're calling him to do, which is throw that ball across that plate and keep the other person from hitting it with the bat. That's it. But there's so many examples, so many instances, and I'm sure we could all look at them and say, yeah, I guess you're right, that the government isn't supposed to actually be doing these things. Now, from that point, from that flawed point of them doing tree cutting and skydiving and crocheting and coffee clutches, from there, they're focusing on so many other things, and they're not really good at those other things, and they're not good at their main task. And so what I want you to do is, again, this is a fantastic little quick article from The Purpose and Role of Government. Again, the link is down in the description. It's from the ESV.org, which is the Bible passage that I find most useful. But I just want to point out right here, and it's just a quick point, and I'm not going to go long because the videos, I do want to jump into those. So let's go. Governments are to act on behalf of the good of all people. Romans 13:4. Now, I know already, before you get your thunder thumbs in play, I know you're already going to tell me, well, that's what the government does when it does welfare. That's what the government does when it does open borders. That's what the government does. I challenge that it's not. This is not merely social justice based on secular human rights. It's essentially rooted in the purposes and gracious creation of humanity by God in his own image. And we know that it's from Genesis 1:26-27. It is right, therefore, for Christians to seek to influence governments to protect society's weakest members, including the poor. You're saying, Jason, we do that. That's why we have welfare. That's how we're protecting the poor. Hold tight. Foreigners. See, Jason, that's why we got open borders. We let people migrate in because we got open borders. Keep going. The helpless. See, Jason, that's why we have those services in place for the helpless, right? Look at the next sentence. The life of the unborn child in particular, as image bearers of God and as the weakest members of society ought to be protected. If you, and this is just where I'm going to start and land, and I'll end after this part right here. If you believe that it is right to delete little people in their mother's womb, sir, ma'am, we don't have anything else left to talk about. You no longer have a moral high ground. You have lost your position to tell me anything about welfare, about social justice, about migrant policies, or intergalactic space dust. If you don't believe and see that the deletion of small little people, those are the most helpless, those are the most poor, those are the most foreign, those are the most helpless. If you can't see that, then sir, ma'am, we don't have anything else to talk about. So when we look at these two interviews, this is where I am starting from. So I make this point several times. I'll say it again. The deletion of children there is no good, valid reason to delete little people. Sorry. My name is Jason, dearwokec@gmail.com. There's no reason for it at all, ever. End of story. Catch me outside. I can meet you in the front if you want, or if you want to meet me over on the side, I got no problem with it. My backyard is pretty big. We can go out there too, but I will, at the end of the day, when I get done mollywhopping you will still be wrong, and deletion of little people will still be evil, and it's a crime against God. But let me finish this sentence up, Jason. And they ought to be protected. Psalm 139 celebrates the mystery of God's creative work in generating life in the womb, while other texts in the Bible condemn the harming of unborn human life. And we got those right there. So I'm just giving you this as just, again, my initial starting off point. I was not going to turn this into a long discussion on this text alone, but please understand, I have zero issue, problem, or concern with doing such. We can do this, but I want to get into and talk about what Biden and what Trump said in their particular respective interviews. There's two of me, and it's crazy. All right, but the article that I was reading is down in the description. If you would like to, feel free to check it out. Shoot me an email, dearwokec@gmail.com. Jason, I disagree with you. I think you're crazy. Your beard needs to be trimmed. Whatever, feel free to do that. I just want to point out a couple things. We are going to be listening to, one of the things I'm going to be listening to is this the duty and responsibility of the state or the government as a whole to be doing said things? And then lastly, where is your moral high ground coming from. Those are my 2 points that I'll be making a lot of hay about as we watch these interviews. If you do, in fact, enjoy this type of content, I wouldn't mind you hitting the like button. If you don't like it and you think that I'm talking too fast and I'm too loud and you think I'm invariably wrong, please hit the like button 3 times. I mean, that kind of sort of does the same thing. But anyway, let us continue. Let us go. Ladies and gentlemen, with no further ado, let's get into this interview. Let's go.
From ABC News, a special edition of This Week. President Joe Biden, his first television interview since the debate. The news-making exclusive. Now reporting from Madison, Wisconsin, George Stephanopoulos.
Good evening from Madison, Wisconsin for a special edition of This Week. The first broadcast interview with President Biden since last week's debate. Earlier this afternoon, we taped the 22-minute interview. There are no cuts, no edits. We have not touched it. At this pivotal moment in the presidential campaign, here it is. Mr. President, thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with the debate.
Okay, I don't know why, and you'll see the contrast when you watch the Trump interview. I don't know why politicians like meeting in elementary and middle schools. That is so weird to me. I don't know why. And given the fact that this is somebody's great grandfather, why are you still in a middle school? I don't get it. If you were a young guy, maybe a young woman running for office, maybe I can understand it. But why are you in a middle school? I don't get that. And I've seen other people on both sides of the aisle do it. So I have no idea what that's about, why they do it. But it just seems really out of pocket. Like, what are we doing? But he's going to start off. George Stephanopoulos starts off here. Let's talk about the debate. And in the chat, if you don't mind, real quick, if you watched the debate, could you please just give me a fire emoji? I ain't did any fire emojis in a while. If you watched the debate, I was honored to be on platform with Professor Nez. By the way, while you all are doing that, shout out to Kat Williams. This has also been, the month of June was really wild for Dear Woke Christian, because not only did I get to meet Kat Williams, I got to meet Professor Nez. I was able to meet with Talk That Law and even Kayla Bumpus. I met a lot of, dare I say, YouTube superstars, if you will, some great content creators. Shout out to Kat Williams. If you could, please make sure you drop your link in the chat, Kat, so we can make sure we check out what you're doing. Really? James, boy, right there. Are you for real? Schools are easy for Secret Service to clear and secure. That makes so much sense. I'm actually mad at myself now. Yeah, after you put the fire emoji in there, we might have to put James in the chat. You know what? That makes so much sense. I'm kind of mad. I actually am kind of mad about that. That makes sense. Okay. I guess that's why they do it. Okay. Well, now I know. Thank you, James. I mean, that makes sense. Whether it's right or wrong, I don't know, but that makes sense. You've convinced me. Let us go. Let us continue. So most of you all saw the debate. So I didn't want to go in. If you do follow Professor Nez, we did that review of it on his channel as well as on Rumble. It was really informative. I had a great time with him. He's a fantastic creator, great thinker and such like that. We also just had a good time to kind of parse through all of the haze, if you will, of those debates. So most of you realize that the Democrat Party has been on basically damage control since then. They've been in damage control mode because everybody saw it. And a lot of people left from there like, yo, is this our candidate? Is this our guy? Is this our pitcher that we're going to build our whole team around? Yeah, we need another pitcher. We got to get something else going on here. So there's been quite a few. And actually, if y'all want to, we could probably spend the whole next week going through hand-wringing videos of woe is me about Biden. Matter of fact, even shout out to Woke Preacher Clips. Woke Preacher Clip put up a video today of quote unquote churches explaining why Biden did so poorly in the debate. It was wild. But my point is they're going to start off trying to explain that away. And I don't know, man. Matter of fact, I had not heard this excuse, actually. I heard several excuses. But this one right here was pretty, It just seems like they're just grabbing whatever somebody will believe. I will tell you that my hat is too tight. I'll tell you that the greens on my screen are too different. I'll tell you that because it's warm in Georgia. I'll tell you that because my drink is not cold, which, by the way, it is cold and pretty good. I'll tell you whatever it is to make you believe it. And whatever you believe, that's the truth. Watch this one.
You and your team have said you had a bad night, but your friend Nancy Pelosi actually framed the question that I think is on the minds of millions of Americans. Was this a bad episode or the sign of a more serious condition?
It's a bad episode. No indication of any serious condition. I was exhausted. I didn't listen to my instincts in terms of preparing, and I had a bad night.
You know, you say you were exhausted, and I know you've said that before as well, but you came, and you did have a tough month, but you came home from Europe about 11 or 12 days before the debate, spent 6 days in Camp David. Why wasn't that enough rest time, enough recovery time?
Because I was sick. I was feeling terrible. Matter of fact, the docs with me, I asked if they did a COVID test because they were trying to figure out what was wrong. They did a test to see whether or not I had some infection, a virus. I didn't. They just had a really bad cold.
Okay, so the reason why President Biden did poorly is because he had a cold. How many of y'all saw him go to the Waffle House after the debate? Going to the Waffle House, shaking hands, dare I say kissing babies, but definitely shaking hands at the Waffle House. But he had a cold. Okay. All right. That's what, hey, you know what? I believe it. You want me to believe it? I believe it. There you go. All right. Let's keep it going.
Did you ever watch the debate afterwards?
I don't think I did, no.
Well, what I want to get at is what were you experiencing as you were going through the debate? Did you know how badly it was going?
Yeah, look, the whole way I prepared, nobody's fault, mine. Nobody's fault but mine. I prepared what I usually would do, sitting down, as I did come back with foreign leaders or the National Security Council, for explicit detail. And I realized about partway through that, I get quoted, the New York Times had me down at 10 points before the debate, 9 now, or whatever the hell it is. The fact of the matter is that what I looked at is that he also lied 28 times. The way the debate ran,
Okay, real quick. You know what? I did hear Trump did say some things that weren't true. Let's just be honest, okay? He did say some things that were true. Whether 28, I don't know. But let's just talk about the fact that the reason we don't know what Biden said that wasn't true because we don't know what Biden said. So I think this right here, now mind you, George Stephanopoulos did not ask him about Trump. He is about to, because he has that in his mind. He's grasped that. He has those numbers, and he can build off of those. But let's let him continue.
my fault, no one else's fault. No one else's fault.
But it seemed like you were having trouble from the first question in.
Right.
Even before he spoke.
Really?
Well, I just had a bad night. You've had some bad interviews once in a while. I can't remember any, but I'm sure you did.
I've had plenty. I guess the question, the problem is here for a lot of Americans watching is you've said, going back to 2020, watch me, to people who are concerned about your age. And, 50 million Americans watched that debate. It seemed to confirm fears they already had.
Well, look, after that debate, I did 10 major events in a row, including until 2 o'clock in the morning after that debate.
Sir, that's not the problem. We don't know what you did at those 10 major events. You might have had maybe 1/10 of the people at all 10 of those events combined as watched the debate. Sir, that's where everybody saw you. And dare I also say, it wasn't just that the American people saw you. Our allies saw you, as well as our enemies saw you on that stage. This is akin to schoolyard bullying you and say, I'm going to go get my big brother. I'm going to get my big brother. And your big brother comes in on a walker, because that's what we got here. And what are our enemies going to do? Let's ask Russia what they did to Ukraine. Let's ask many of the other wars that have started since Biden has been in office. Sir, you didn't come across as strong. You came across as a doddering grandfather that needed to go sit down. I'm not mad at you. I think this is elder abuse, in my opinion. I think his wife needs to be brought up on charges. His family needs to be ashamed of themselves. His cabinet should be disbanded because they see this man stumbling and falling, literally, physically, and lyrically, and they are not doing the right things. The right thing is to tell this man he must step down. But hey, I'm just here for laughs and giggles because my king is never going to fail. My king will never need to be primaried or have to have a cognitive test or anything of that nature. So as long as Christ still reigns, I can sit here and watch this and eat popcorn and just say, I guess it is what it is. This is who he chose. This is who he puts in front of us. And dare I say, this might be Joe Biden's Nebuchadnezzar moment. I don't know. But let us continue, Jason.
Did events in North Carolina. I did events in Georgia. Did events like this today. Large crowds, overwhelming response, no slipping. And so I just had a bad night. I don't know why.
And how quickly did it come to you that you were having that bad night?
Well, it came to me I was having a bad night when I realized that even when I was answering a question, even though they turned his mic off, he was still shouting. And I let it distract me.
That is a lie. I'm sorry. You're going to have to roll that tape back and show me where Trump was shouting with his mic being muted. I'm sorry. That's just a bold-faced lie. But here's the thing, though. If you're going to talk about your accomplishments, if I picked anybody in this live chat right now and asked you to tell me about your accomplishments as a parent or accomplishments as a husband or wife, and your accomplishments and your failures, I don't think you would need to prepare for 6 days in order to tell me that. Maybe like 6 minutes tops. But I think most of you would probably be able to tell me with records and showing me pictures and, here's some artifacts to prove that you're a good husband, a good wife, a good father or mother. All you gotta do is tell the truth. I'm sorry, what he did was not 6 days of prep. I'm sorry, there's no way. There's absolutely, positively, unequivocally no way you're gonna get me to believe that performance was after 6 days of prep. Maybe 6 minutes, maybe 6 hours. I'll give you 6 hours just to be gracious. But my goodness, in the morning, that was not 6 days worth of prep. There's no way you're gonna make me believe a whole entire week. I'm not a whole fool. Okay, that's just insane. But even more than that, if you want our enemies, if you want those who want to do America harm to second guess and to think, maybe I shouldn't do that. Is this the man that's going to do it? Just tell me that. Please tell me that. Let us go.
I'm not blaming it on that, but I realized that I just wasn't in control.
But part of the other concern is that this seems to have fit into a pattern of decline that has been reported on recently. New York Times had a headline on July 2nd, Biden's lapses are said to be increasingly common and worrisome. Here's what they wrote. People who have spent time with President Biden over the last few months or so said the lapses appear to have grown more frequent, more pronounced, and after Thursday's debate, more worrisome. By many accounts, as evidenced by video footage, observation, and interviews, Mr. Biden is not the same today as he was even when he took office 3.5 years ago. Similar reporting in the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal. Are you the same man today that you were when you took office 3.5 years ago?
Okay, before he jumps in, notice that we are now this is a 22-minute interview. We're almost 4.5 minutes, almost 5 minutes through this interview, and all they're talking about this man's cognitive capacity. That's all they're talking about. They literally have got to spend, if I'm not mistaken, they end up spending about 6 minutes trying to smooth over that dismal display and what we are seeing, because we're seeing it. It's not being told to us. We are actually watching it in 4K, that this man is not able to do the task that he's being asked to do. That's it. There's no other way around it. There's no other way to parse it. There's no other way to spin it. There's no other way to make it make sense anymore. This man is not able to do this job. And they're going to keep on trying to play in your face, as the kids like to say, that we're not seeing this in real time.
Success is yes. I also was the guy who put together a peace plan for the Middle East that may be coming to fruition. I was also the guy that expanded NATO. I was also the guy that grew the economy. All the individual things that were done were ideas I had or I fulfilled. I moved on. And so, for example, well, that was true then. What's Biden done lately? Today, just announced 200,000 new jobs. We're moving in a direction that no one's ever taken on. I know you know this from the days in the government. I took on Big Pharma. I beat them. No one said I could beat them. I took on all the things we said we got done. We were told we couldn't get done. And part of it is what I said when I ran was I wanted to do three things: restore some decency to the office, restore some support for the middle class instead of trickle-down economics, built from the middle out and the bottom up. That way the wealthy still do fine, everyone does better, and unite the country.
But what has all that work over the last 3.5 years cost you physically, mentally, emotionally?
Biden literally tried to spin this thing, pivot this thing into talking about his alleged accomplishments. And Stephanopoulos is not having it. He's like, yo, this stuff, whatever you're doing, man, is having some wear and tear on you. How worn, how torn are you? That's hilarious. It's like he doesn't even care. Joe Biden just said he created 200,000 jobs. He just said he brought peace to the Middle East. He just said those things in 4K, and this man is not even blinking. Dude, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with your physical body? What's wrong with your mental capacity? That is hilarious. Let's go. Let's finish, Jason.
Well, I just think it cost me a really bad night, a bad run. But, George, I'm optimistic about this country. I don't think we're a country of losers, that he points out. I don't think America's in tough shape. I think America's on the cusp of breaking through in so many incredible opportunities. This next term, I'm going to make sure we have straighten out the tax system. I'm going to make sure we're in a situation where we have health care for all people, where we're in a position where we have...
Okay, I'm going to stop right there. In my opening monologue, I told you there's certain things that the government is not supposed to do. The government is not supposed to take care of your health care. I'm just going to say that. It's not. I understand we've put ourselves in a position where the government does take care of our health care. But the problem is the government is not supposed to take care of your health care. It's not supposed to happen. So just going to say that. DearWokeC@gmail.com. Please make sure you email management. Let me know how terrible I am of a person. But the government's not supposed to take care of your health care.
Have child care and elder care.
The government's not supposed to take care of your children. Nope. One of the problems is, and most of you all know, that Mama Dear Woke Christian is a polio survivor. My mother contracted polio and was diagnosed with polio the year before they came out with the infamous polio vaccine. Even though she had contracted it, she has the mark on her arm, like most people who are about 70 plus years old during that time period when they were given vaccines in elementary school. She contracted polio right before then, before they came up with the polio vaccine. So needless to say, Mama Dear Woke Christian has been on crutches. She was able to walk when I was born. Then she went to crutches, and sadly, one day she, when Taylor was chief executive, second born, was real young, she fell and broke her leg, and the leg never healed properly, of course. And so she's been in a wheelchair for better than like a decade and a quarter almost. So needless to say, my mom is a polio survivor. One of the things I noticed as I was watching this interview and I was thinking about it, my mom doesn't want you to treat her like she is a polio person, okay? She drives herself. She gets herself to church. She does all those things on her own. She does not want you to do anything extra. All my mom wants you to do is get out of her way. And, hey, that little wheelchair she has is pretty fast. So you do probably want to get out of her way for your own safety. But more than that, she doesn't need you to placate her. She is driven across the country. She's had flat tires on the side of the road. She has gone to work. She's gone to the store. If her van breaks down, she takes herself down to Starbucks on her own in her wheelchair. My mom doesn't need anything. She actually hates when I call and dote over her to ask does she need anything, because she doesn't need anything. She just needs you to get out of her way and give her the ability to do whatever she wants to do. Now, I don't think that's probably the wisest thing to do. I think I make a good point that she needs to stop doing that stuff. But I wouldn't be surprised I look up and my mom is somewhere she doesn't need to be. But she just wants to go there. She wants to do her thing. My point in saying all that is she doesn't need the government to take care of her. Now, she is retired. She does receive her pension and so on and so forth, but she's not asking people to do anything more than what they would do for just anybody else. And why in the world does the government need to be doing that? Because once the government starts doing that and they now have the control and the purse strings of your existence, how far-fetched is it for them to say, hey, your existence is a little bit too costly. We need to make some adjustments and changes to your existence in order for us to be able to keep sustaining and maintaining everybody else. Is that a far-fetch? Let's finish up, Jason. Let's go.
Free up and all these things. The one thing I'm proudest of is, remember when my economic plan was put forward, a lot of the mainstream economists said it's not going to work. Well, guess what? You now have 16 Nobel laureates, 16 of them in economics, saying that Biden's next term would be, based on what he wants to do, enormous success. Trump's plan would cause a recession, would significantly increase inflation. I've made great progress, and that's what I plan on doing, and we can do this.
I understand that, and I'm not disputing that. What I'm asking you is about your personal situation. Do you dispute that there have been more lapses, especially in the last several months?
We are now at 7 minutes into this interview, and George Stephanopoulos is not getting off of the fact that, Biden, we're watching you in 4K stumble, wander, days off in space, fall asleep, look like you're losing your mind, and of course, listening to you talk like that. He's still not letting it go.
Can I run the 110 flat? No, but I'm still in good shape.
Are you more frail?
No.
I know you spoke.
Keep my schedule.
I know you spoke with your doctor after the debate. What did he say?
He said, he just looked at me and said, "You're exhausted." I said, "Look, I have medical doctors travel me everywhere. Every president does, as you know. Medical doctors, some of the best in the world, travel me everywhere I go. I have an ongoing assessment of what I'm doing. They don't hesitate to tell me if they think there's something wrong."
I know you said you have an ongoing assessment. Have you had a full neurological and cognitive evaluation?
I get a full neurological test every day with me. And I've had a full physical. I had, I've been at Walter Reed for my physicals. Yes. The answer is
I know your doctor said he consulted with a neurologist. I guess I'm asking a slightly different question. Have you had the specific cognitive tests, and have you had a neurologist, a specialist, do an examination?
no one said I had to. No one said, they said I'm good.
Would you be willing to undergo an independent medical evaluation that included neurological and cognitive tests and release the results to the American people?
Look, I have a cognitive test every single day.
I have no idea what cognitive tests he's getting every single day. Now, if you're married, I'm sure you probably feel like you might be getting interrogated every single day, but I don't think that's what you're talking about, Joe. Please understand again, we are almost at 9 minutes into this interview, and they've talked about nothing but Joe Biden's physical health, his mental capacity, and so forth. Joe Biden has tried to pivot off of that, and George Stephanopoulos is not playing with him. He's going to keep asking him that. And wow.
Every day I have that test. Everything I do. Not only am I campaigning, but I'm running the world. And that's not how it sounds like hyperbole. But we are the essential nation in the world. Madeleine Albright was right.
When I said I was not being hyperbole when I think Joe Biden is having his Nebuchadnezzar moment. If you're not familiar with Nebuchadnezzar, go to Daniel, the book of Daniel. Matter of fact, just read the book of Daniel. It's a great story. There's a king named Nebuchadnezzar, and he one day walks out over the city of Babylon and looks and says, "What is this Babylon that I have built?" And the day he said that, God caused him to lose his mind, and he went insane. For 7 years, he was in the field eating grass like a cow, and it was insane. So I really think we've watched Joe Biden. Joe Biden just said, "We run the world." Y'all did hear. Let me back that up a little taste, because y'all might think I'm making this up. DearWokeC@gmail.com. If you have a complaint with management, please let us know.
Do an examination.
No one said I had to. No one said. They said I'm good.
Would you be willing to undergo an independent medical evaluation that included neurological and cognitive tests and release the results to the American people?
Look, I have a cognitive test every single day. Every day I have that test. Everything I do. You know, not only am I campaigning, but I'm running the world. And that's not, it sounds like hyperbole. But we are the essential nation in the world. Madeleine Albright was right. And every single day, for example, today, before I come out here, I'm on the phone with the Prime Minister of, well, anyway, I shouldn't get into detail, but with Netanyahu. I'm on the phone with the new Prime Minister of England. I'm working on what we're doing with regard to, in Europe, with regard to expansion of NATO and whether it's going to stick. I'm taking on Putin. I mean, every day, there's no day I go through, there are not those decisions I have to make every single day.
And you have been doing that, and the American people have been watching, yet their concerns about your age and your health are growing. So that's why I'm asking, to reassure them, would you be willing to have the independent medical evaluation?
Watch me there's a lot of time left in this campaign.
No,
it's over 125 days.
So
I'll
the
make a decision.
The right answer right now is no, you don't want to do that right
No,
now.
I've already done it.
You talked a lot about your successes at the beginning of this interview.
Okay. As much as George Stephanopoulos has been asking Biden questions, Biden stood right there in that man's face and lied to him and said, "I've already given it." No, you haven't. No, you haven't. Or people would believe that nobody would be asking these questions. But I digress. Let's talk about his successes. We've literally spent 10 minutes, 10 minutes of a 22-minute interview discussing Joe Biden's cognitive ability, his physical frailty, his mental capacity. That's been the lion's share of this interview at this point.
And I don't want to dispute that. I don't want to debate that. But as you know, elections are about the future, not the past. They're about tomorrow, not yesterday. And the question on so many people's minds right now is, can you serve effectively for the next 4 years?
George, I'm the guy that put NATO together, the future. No one thought I could expand it. I'm the guy that shut Putin down. No one thought could happen.
Wait. Real quick in the chat, is Putin still attacking the Ukraine? I might have missed it. Maybe I missed that day of celebration, but I thought Putin was still attacking the Ukraine, and they still. What put down Putin is he talking about? Why do we need NATO again? Again, I brought this up in the beginning in my opening monologue. There's a lot of things that the government does that should not be done, and this is probably two of them right off the bat. But can y'all remind me? I'm really wondering, did I miss that or something? Did he stop the Russian infraction with Ukraine? I missed that day.
I'm the guy that put together the South Pacific Initiative with AUKUS. I'm the guy that got 50 nations, out, not only in Europe, outside of Europe as well, to help Ukraine. I'm the guy that got Japanese to expand their budget. For example, when I decided we used to have 40% of the computer chip in it, we invented the chip, that little chip for the computer chip. It's in everything from cell phone to weapons. And so we used to have 40%, and we're down to virtually nothing. So I get in the plane against the advice of everybody, and I fly to South Korea. I convinced them to invest in the United States billions of dollars. Now we have tens of billions of dollars being invested in the United States, making us back in a position where we're going to own that industry again. We have, anyway, I don't want to take too much credit. I have a great staff.
But I guess my point is, all that takes a toll. Do you have the mental and physical capacity to do it for another 4 years?
I believe so. I wouldn't be running if I didn't think I did. Look, I'm running again because I think I understand best what has to be done to take this nation to a completely new level. We're on our way. We're on our way. And look, the decision recently made by the Supreme Court on immunity, you know, the next president of the United States, it's not just about whether he or she knows what they're doing. It's not about a conglomerate of people making decisions. It's about the character of the president. The character of the president is going to determine whether or not this Constitution is employed the right way.
Let me ask you a tougher, more personal question. Are you sure you're being honest with yourself when you say you have the mental and physical capacity to serve another?
We have now crossed the halfway point of this interview. There is more interview in our rearview mirror that is in front of us. And George Stephanopoulos is still asking about this man's mental capacity. I'm just saying.
4 years.
Yes, I am, because, George, the last thing I want to do is not be able to meet that. I think, as some of the senior economists and senior foreign policy specialists say, if I stop now, I'd go down in history as a pretty successful president. No one thought I could get done what we got done.
But are you being honest with yourself as well about your ability to defeat Donald Trump right now?
Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
You say that, and let me challenge you.
Sure.
Because you were close, but behind going into the debate. You're further behind now, by any measure. It's been a two-man race for several months. Inflation has come down. In those last few months, he's become a convicted felon. Yet you're still falling further behind.
You guys keep saying that. George, you know polling better than anybody. Do you think polling data is accurate as it used to be?
I don't think so, but I think when you look at all of the polling data right now, it shows that he's certainly ahead in the popular vote, probably even more ahead in the battleground states. And one of the other key factors there is it shows that in many of the battleground states, the Democrats who are running for Senate and the House are doing better than you are.
Well, that's not unusual in some states. I carried an awful lot of Democrats last time I ran in 2020. Look, I remember them telling me the same thing in 2020. I can't win. The polls show I can't win. Remember 2020, the red wave was coming. Before the vote, I said, that's not going to happen. We're going to win. We did better in an off year than almost any incumbent president ever has done. They said in 2023, all the tough races, we're not going to win. I went into all those areas, all those districts, and we won.
All that is true, but 2020 was a close race. And your approval rating has dropped significantly since then. I think the last poll I saw was at about 36%. The number of Americans who think you're too old to serve has doubled since 2020. Wouldn't a clear-eyed political calculus tell you that it's going to be much tougher to win in 2024?
Not when you're running against a pathological liar. Not when he hadn't been challenged in a way that he's about to be challenged. Not when people...
You've had months to challenge him.
Oh, I sure had.
Dude, you literally sued the guy on 6 different fronts, and the man is still winning. What do you mean he hasn't been challenged? I mean, literally, you're trying your best using lawfare to sink this guy, and he doesn't seem to fall. Now, am I saying that Trump is perfect? By no means. Oh, my gosh, no. What I am saying, however, is, sir, please stop lying to yourself. He's never been challenged? What are you talking about? What did y'all do in 2020 then? Was that patty cake? What happened?
But I was also doing a hell of a lot of other things, like wars around the world, like keeping NATO together, like working, anyway. But look.
Do you really believe you're not behind right now?
I think all the pollsters I talk to tell me it's a toss-up.
Okay, I got to stop right here. Wait. Just remember, and I wasn't going to bring any comments in, but now I got to bring this in. Remember, he did win by 81 million votes. That being the case, even if you do realize 81 million votes, he would still beat Trump today with 81 million votes. That's all I'm saying. Even the people that voted for him before, the sea urchins and all the stars in the galaxy and the sand on the seashore, all cast a ballot for Biden. He would trounce Trump. I'm just saying, like, where's the 81 million votes, sir? Did I hit rewind? I hit rewind. Y'all pray for your boy. I hit rewind.
A conglomerate of people making decisions. It's about the character of the president. The character of the president is going to determine whether or not this Constitution is employed the right way.
Let me ask you a tougher, more personal question. Are you sure you're being honest with yourself when you say you have the mental and physical capacity to serve another 4 years?
Yes, I am, because, George, the last thing I want to do is not be able to meet that. I think, as some of the senior economists and senior foreign policy specialists say, if I stop now, I'd go down in history as a pretty successful president.
I hit rewind, sorry.
No one thought I could get done what we got done.
But are you being honest with yourself as well about your ability to defeat Donald Trump right now?
Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
You say that, and let me challenge you.
Sure.
Because you were close, but behind going into the debate. You're further behind now, by any measure. It's been a two-man race for several months. Inflation has come down. In those last few months, he's become a convicted felon, yet you're still falling further behind.
You guys keep saying that. George, you know polling better than anybody. Do you think polling data is accurate as it used to be?
I don't think so, but I think when you look at all of the polling data right now, it shows that he's certainly ahead in the popular vote, probably even more ahead in the battleground states. And one of the other key factors there is it shows that in many of the battleground states, the Democrats who are running for Senate and the House are doing better than you are.
Well, that's not unusual in some states. I carried an awful lot of Democrats last time I ran in 2020. Look, I remember them telling me the same thing in 2020. I can't win. The polls show I can't win. Remember 2020, the red wave was coming. Before the vote, I said, that's not going to happen. We're going to win. We did better in an off year than almost any incumbent president ever has done. They said in 2023, all the tough races, we're not going to win. I went into all those areas, all those districts, and we won.
All that is true, but 2020 was a close race. And your approval rating has dropped significantly since then. I think the last poll I saw was at about 36%. The number of Americans who think you're too old to serve has doubled since 2020. Wouldn't a clear-eyed political calculus tell you that it's going to be much tougher to win in 2024?
Not when you're running against a pathological liar. Not when he hadn't been challenged in a way that he's about to be challenged. Not when people...
You've had months to challenge him.
Oh, sure I had months, but I was also doing a hell of a lot of other things, like wars around the world, like keeping NATO together, like working... Anyway. But look...
Do you really believe you're not behind right now?
I think it's all the pollsters I talk to tell me it's a toss-up. It's a toss-up. And when I'm behind, there's only one poll I'm really far behind. CBS poll and NBC, and...
New York Times and NBC both have you about 6 points behind in the popular vote.
That's exactly right. New York Times had me behind before anything happened to do with this race. Had me behind 10 points. 10 points had me behind. Nothing's changed substantially in the debate, the New York Times poll.
First of all, I don't trust polls because I just turned 50, and I can tell you emphatically, I probably have been a part of a poll maybe twice in all of my years, maybe. And one of them, I got a text recently about it, this particular race. So before then, I couldn't think of a phone call, an email, a text, smoke signal, none of that stuff. I don't know who they're polling. I don't know who they're polling asking these questions of. But hold on. You want me to believe that this man is going over all of his bona fides, all the things that he's done, been successful, and he doesn't realize that he's behind and nobody's mentioned that to him? I'm sorry. There's some book cooking going on. Let's finish up.
Just when you look at the reality though, Mr. President, I mean, you won the popular vote. in 2020, but it was still deadly close in the Electoral
By
College.
7 million votes.
Yes, but you're behind now in the popular vote.
I don't buy that.
Is it worth the risk?
I don't think anybody's more qualified to be president or win this race than me.
You know, the heart of your case against Donald Trump is that he's only out for himself, putting his personal interest ahead of the national interest. How do you respond to critics who say that by staying in the race, you're doing the same thing?
Oh, come on. Well, I don't think those critics know what they're talking about.
They're just wrong?
It's wrong. Look, Trump is a pathological liar. Trump is, he is. Have you ever seen anything Trump did that benefited somebody else, not him? You can't answer, I know.
I've questioned him and his allies as persistently as any journalist has.
No, I know you have. I'm not being
Yeah.
critical.
Yeah.
I'm not being critical. But look, I mean, the man is a congenital liar. As I said, they pointed out in that debate he lied 28 times the Times, or whatever number, over 20 times. Talk about how good his economy was, how he brought down inflation, how this is a guy who, unlike only other president other than him is Hoover, lost more jobs than he created. This is a guy who told us to put bleach in our arms to deal with COVID, with over a million people died. This is a guy who talks about wanting to get rid of the healthcare provision we put in place. This is a guy who wants to give the power back to big pharma to be able to charge exorbitant prices for drugs. This is a guy who wants to undo every single thing I've done. Every single thing.
I understand that. I understand that's why you want to stay in the race. But have you convinced yourself that only you can defeat him?
I convinced myself of two things. I'm the most qualified person to beat him, and I know how to get things done.
If you can be convinced that you cannot defeat Donald Trump, will you stand down?
Well, it depends if the Lord Almighty comes out and tells me that, I might do that.
Well, I mean, on a more practical level, Washington Post just reported in the last hour that Senator Mark Warner is assembling a group of senators together to try and convince you to stand down because they don't think you can win.
Well, Mark is a good man. We've never had that. He also tried to get the nomination too. Mark and I have a different perspective. I respect him.
And if Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and Nancy Pelosi come down and say, we're worried that if you stay in the race, we're going to lose the House and the Senate, how will you respond?
I go into detail with them. I've spoken to all of them in detail, including Jim Clyburn. Every one of them. They all said I should stay in the race. Stay in the race. None of the people said I should leave.
But if they do?
Well, it's like, they're not going to do that.
So remember a moment ago, he said that the only reason Trump is running is for himself. George Stephanopoulos is basically saying, what if the people beg you to not run? And he's finding every reason under the sun to continue. And I just want you to just pay attention to that. When we watch Trump, I want you to be just as hard, just as strict, because he says some crazy stuff too. So that's not the point. The point is here, why in the world won't Joe Biden just say, hey, if it's best for the country, because that's basically what George Stephanopoulos is saying. If it's better for the country that you not run, will you step down? And Biden is finding every way possible to joke or grin his way out of it.
You sure?
Well, yeah, I'm sure. Look, I mean, if the Lord Almighty came down and said, Joe, get out of the race, I get out of the race, the Lord Almighty's not coming down. I mean, these hypotheticals, George.
Common sense, sir. Common sense, sir. That's it.
But it's not that hypothetical anymore. I grant that they have not requested the meeting, but it's been reported.
I've met with them. I've met with a lot of these people. I've talked with them regularly. I had an hour conversation with Hakeem. I had more time than that with Jim Clyburn. I spent time with many hours, off and on, the last little bit, with Chuck Schumer. It's not like I had all the governors.
I agree that the Lord Almighty is not going to come down, but if you are told reliably from your allies, from your friends and supporters in the Democratic Party, in the House and the Senate, that they're concerned you're going to lose the House and the Senate if you stay in, what will you do?
I'm not going to answer that question. It's not going to happen.
What's your plan to turn the campaign around?
You saw it today. How many people do you draw crowds like I drew today? You find many more enthusiastic than today? Huh?
I mean, I don't think you want to play the crowd game. Donald Trump can draw big crowds. There's no question about that.
He can draw a big crowd, but what does he say? Who does he have? I'm the guy supposedly in trouble. We raised $38 million within 4 days after this. We have over 1 million individual contributors. Less than $200. I've not seen.
I'm sorry. I don't think he is even aware of the question that's being asked of him. When George Stephanopoulos just literally said, you don't want to play the crowd game with Donald Trump. He knows exactly what he's talking about. Trump people are something different. Those people are excited to vote for that man. Can this gentleman right here tell us that people are excited to vote for him in November, late October, or whenever, if you're early voting? I'm sorry. This is terrible.
What you're proposing.
You haven't seen the fall off in the polls. You haven't seen the reports of discontent in the Democratic Party, House Democrats, Senate Democrats.
I've seen it from the press.
You know, I've heard from dozens of your supporters over the last few days, and a variety of views, I grant you that. But the prevailing sentiment is this. They love you, and they will be forever grateful to you for defeating Donald Trump in 2020. They think you've done a great job as president, a lot of the successes you outlined. But they are worried about you and the country, and they don't think you can win. They want you to go with grace, and they will cheer you if you do. What do you say to them?
I say the vast majority are not where those folks are. I don't doubt there's some folks there. Have you ever seen a group at time when elected officials running for office aren't a little worried? Have you ever seen that? I've not. Same thing happened in 2020. Oh, Biden, I don't know, man. What's he going to do? He may bring me down. He may.
Mr. President, I've never seen a president at 36% approval get reelected.
Well, I don't believe that's my approval rate. That's not what our polls show.
And if you stay in and Trump is elected and everything you're warning about comes to pass, how will you feel in January?
I feel as long as I gave it my all and I did the goodest job as I know I can do. That's what this is about. Look, George, think of it this way. You've heard me say this before. I think the United States and the world is at an inflection point where the things that happen in the next several years are going to determine what the next 6, 7 decades look like. And who's going to be able to hold NATO together like me? Who's going to be able to be in a position where I'm able to keep the Pacific Basin in a position where we're at least checkmating China now? Who's going to do that? Who has that reach? Who knows all these? We're going to have, I guess, a good way to judge me is you're going to have now the NATO conference here in the United States next week. Come listen. See what they say.
Mr. President, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Okay. I understand. I might be odd man out. I understand the highly melanated, believe that they should support Biden. There was absolutely, unequivocally nothing there of support. Please understand, the entire interview was George Stephanopoulos asking questions about health, cognitive abilities, frailty, and so on and so forth. I mean, that's literally all he talked about. He didn't talk about anything. He didn't talk about anything of substance. And I have to give credit to Joe Biden, who tried to weave those things in. Maybe his earpiece was telling him to weave those things in. But again, NATO, and you got Putin to step down, and you got Korea to make microchips. And sir, what Nothing about the fact that we're paying summa cum laude gas prices. Nothing about the fact. Matter of fact, instead of being at middle school, they should have did this at the local Kroger on the bread aisle. See, that would have been a guarantee shoe-in victory. When you can see the fact that you're paying $5 for a loaf of bread, $8 for a gallon of milk, a whole child for a dozen eggs. That's all people need to see. See, these are the things that impact us. I don't think people care about NATO like that. And we don't really, I don't even understand what he was talking about with the microchip thing. I don't even understand what that was. But what people are most concerned about is the fact that Joe Biden has 36% approval rating. Some people are paying 36% on their taxes. And they've seen a 36% increase in the goods that they buy when they go to the grocery store. Those are the concerns that people have. Those are the concerns that are really gripping people. And this dude is over here talking about meeting with the Prime Minister of England. I need you to come to New England. We need you to come to English Avenue and discuss why we're paying this amount. Nothing about the border, nothing about the security of the United States. As I said before in my opening monologue, we have a government that specializes in doing things that they don't need to be doing. That's not your responsibility, Joe. Keeping NATO together, I see many people right here saying NATO needs to go. But Joe, you're busy regaling NATO, but sir, I can't afford some Cheetos. How about that? Like, why do I care about NATO? I don't even know what NATO stands for. All I know is I got to go stand in line and buy this bread, buy these milk, buy these eggs, pay this gas, and sir, it's not looking good. That's what people care about. That's why he's going to lose. You're busy talking about all this other stuff and nothing of substance, nothing of value. Thank y'all so much, everybody who stopped by tonight.
Yo, hit that like for deal with Christian. Yo, for deal with Christian. Smash that bell for DWC. Yo, smash it. Just smash it. Hit that like for deal with Christian. For deal with Christian. Smash that bell for DWC. Yo, smash it. Just smash it. Hit that like for deal with Christian.